What I'm about to say is either going to sound wildly simplistic or wildly overthought. I'm either an idiot or I've thought too hard and have circled back to zero, okay? But just stay with me. Movement through three-dimensional space is an element of artistry. Some dance forms incorporate and embody this idea better than ballet does. In ballet, because we are turned out, because we are so focused on showing that turnout, because of the history and how things developed, always facing the royalty and the aristocracy, it can be really easy for our dancers to stop being aware of the space around them and only be aware of what they can see. I do the same things for beginners as I do for older dancers when I'm trying to gauge how comfortable they are with the concept of space as all around them. And it is this: have your students stand in a circle and then have them turn their backs into the circle so everyone is facing outward, and then give a really simple combination like a center tendu or a center adagio if it doesn't really go anywhere and you've been able to space the circle enough that it will work. Honestly, a tendu tends to be my favorite because we can be close together, and I think you'll be surprised at how hesitant some of your dancers are to tendu arabesque, knowing there is someone behind them and intellectually knowing they are too far away, their leg is not that long, they are not going to hit each other. But if they are uncomfortable with the concept of all of the space around them, they will hesitate. And I do it with tendus because there is less energy than like a dégagé. So if something were to go wrong, it's a pretty low-key issue. And then when dancers get into more elementary division work, that's when I start having them face different walls, because the concept that we're introducing is front does not mean mirror. Front does not even have to mean seats in the house of a theater. Front can mean anywhere we want it to. There are a lot of different ways to perform that don't all involve that proscenium with the very clear front. I know a lot of people will flip to the back of the studio in preparation for performances, but I find it more useful to do just throughout the year, like once a month or so, and I rotate where we're facing. And I know it makes sense to face front and back because the studio space is usually rectangular. So if you're going to face stage right or stage left, you usually have to take that into consideration when you are creating your combinations. But I think it's really worth it because now the dancers have all these different places that they can perform to. And it also helps separate in their minds the difference between my front and the front. And that's a separation that is really going to make your life easier when you go in to teach croisé and effacé. We've all been there. I think I have a video that I will link about teaching croisé and effacé, but everybody turns to the corner of the room. And since the room is usually rectangular, they have gone too far. It can be really tricky to help dancers figure out that they're standing in a box around themselves, a square box inside a larger rectangular space, and they need to turn to the corner of their box. That can be really tricky, but it is an easier thing to conceptualize if we have prepared by facing multiple different places as a temporary front. When dancers get into the advanced levels, I find it's really helpful for them to start thinking about the space around them as a partner. We start thinking about the space moving out of our way, but also filling the emptiness that we left behind, right? Like, so if my leg is tendu devant and I rond de jambe all the way to derrière, not only is the space, for example, if I'm moving to my left, not only is the space to my left, like the air molecules being displaced by my leg, but they are almost being pushed in a full circle around me to fill in the space that I've vacated. This is much easier to do if you encourage them to go try dancing in a pool, because we push the water away and they can feel the muscular effort involved in pushing the water away. They can feel the resistance, but they can also see that water is simultaneously filling that space. It's a really fun summertime exploration to do because you can send them to the pool. And once they've started to really grasp that concept, then it can be easier to, I like to personify space, but that doesn't work for everybody, especially your more literal-minded dancers who prefer geometric or other mathematical approaches to ballet. Personification is not going to work for them, which is fine. But whether it's a person or an object, the space around you is a partner helping you create the dance. This can be really helpful in Adagio when you have to hold your leg forever. I find it really helpful to think, okay, you've got all of these molecules underneath you that are helping to support your leg. I know that air is not pushing my leg up, but the image tends to make it easier to relax the surface muscle tension and rely on the deeper core muscles, and the whole thing just tends to work better. Or if you're working on an attitude derriere shape where you can't see what you're doing, and if you look in the mirror, you break the line and it does weird things. If you think about how you're going to wrap your leg around someone, and if you drop your ankle, and we would then lose turnout in the hip, and then we would, instead of it like wrapping around this person, it would start to kind of come down and almost hit them in the back of the knees. These are the kinds of things where when we think about this space around us as an active participant in the dancing, it can actually make some movements easier. And then it gets into the whole expressive situation. It makes everything they would do facing upstage more interesting to watch because they are aware of what's behind them, which is now what the audience can see. It tends to help dancers be much more expansive and generous in their movement because they're not dancing to their reflection. They are dancing in space. So yes, it sounds stupid obvious that dance is a movement through three-dimensional space. And yes, it's the kind of thing you can think too hard about, but it's also a really valuable element of artistry to explore in your classes.